Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And last week we grafted the fig tree behind me, which I'll show you briefly, where it was originally a cutting off of a fig tree that was in the family for close to 40 years, and we have converted it over the course of last year into 5 stems, which we then grafted into what we now call a 5-in-1 fig tree, and we've got 5 different varieties of figs on it. But what I have here next to me to my left is my 3-in-1 apple tree, and that's one rootstock, which is at the bottom, and you may notice that it's got 3 stems, but they're grafted with 3 different varieties of apples. The one to my furthest left is a Granny Smith apple. The one over here is a family favorite tree, which is a blended reddish green variety. And then the one just behind me, and the closest one to me, is of the red variety. I've got to research the name on it. But the point is, when these go to fruit, my goal is to have a green, a greenish red, and a red apple all on one tree and on a proven to perform rootstock that's going to control its size, prevent root rot, disease resistance, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that as well. But what I want to share with you, if you come in a little closer, there's 2 different grafting methods that I like best in my garden. One is called the Approach Grafting, which I have close to a 100% success rate, as both trees are on their same root and they heal and they grow together. And once you see that in fact they've healed and become one, then I'll separate one from its root and the other I'll remove the top of the branch, and that'll create the new desired flavor of tree on a rootstock. For example, this here was an Approach graft with 1 apple, and you can see that the rootstock was this over here, and the grafted part was on top over here. If you take a look, you can see a little bit of the swollen tissues, which are created by the cambium layers. So this here is the reddish green apple that's grafted on top, and this here is going to control the flavor and quality of fruit that's on top of this rootstock. And then behind it, if we come in a little closer over here, you can see here's the swollen tissues of another Approach graft where the Granny Smith apple is resting on top of this rootstock. And again, this was done by the Approach grafting method. And the third over here is the red apple, and maybe we can come a little closer here with the camera, and you can see over here the scar tissues between the scion wood, which is the desired flavor of the red apple, on top of the rootstock, which is down below. If you zoom back, you may see that it's coated in what appears to be a very light color. And this is not the color of the plant. This here was coated with the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard. And what this offers the plant is, 1, defense from sunburn. In the winter, it offers protection if the temperatures fall into freezing, followed by a warm afternoon, and then back into freezing. That could cause what's called is sun scald, where the bark will crack and allow pathogens, bacteria, and wood-boring insects right into the tree. The other 2 defenses it offers is protection from insects. And the third, and you'll notice that girdling is an issue across the country with fruit growers, where the rodents are starving in the winter and they'll start gnawing at the bark to access those sugar-rich, carbohydrate-rich saps. So by coating the plant, again, you're offering protection against rodents as well. And the way this product does so is, let me bring a product right here. So this here is the product again. So it's Ivory Organic. It's a 3-in-1 plant guard, where on these cans you just add water, protection against damaging sunburn and insects and rodents, for use on your roses, fruit, nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. It's a non-toxic, environmentally safe, and organic product, and it's registered material for use in organic agriculture. And the oils that are in here, and the way this is accomplished, is it's got organic castor oil. So the castor oil is a proven oil for repelling rodents. It also has cinnamon oil, clove oil, cedarwood oil, garlic oil, peppermint oil, and rosemary oil, all oils that are proven to naturally repel insects off of your plants that are protected with the product. And the formula is a patented formula that offers time-release protection to your plants. Let me open one of these cans, and what we're going to do here today is, if you take a look on the inside with these contents, it basically comes with, this here is the color green, and you can see it comes with a bag of the organic paint solution, and then it comes with a oil vial, which is bubble wrap like so. And what you're going to do is you're going to mix these 2 products into your can and add water, and you'll end up with a solution like this. And if I take my my spoon over here, just gonna mix that up. And this is gonna be our green solution. What I wanted to demonstrate for you before we start grafting, and again, the two grafting techniques we're gonna do is one called the Approach Graft, and the second is called the Cleft Graft. The Approach Graft I recommend doing when you've got the two plants and you can put them in close enough vicinity that they can heal over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But the Cleft Graft is when you can only take the scion wood. Like for example, the tree's over here, and there's another tree on the other side of the garden. I can't get them close enough to grow and heal with one another. I might just have to just take the desired flavor of scion wood and then graft it onto the other tree. And I'm going to show you both approaches so that regardless if you know of a desired flavor of apple, you can have that in your garden. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to take my brush here, but what I wanted to show you while I've got you on my 3-in-1, and being that Ivory Organics is in 3 different colors, and I have a lot of people that come here and visit my garden, I figured I've got 3 apples and 3 flavors and 3 different, it's actually all one rootstock, but what I wanted to do is paint one white, and keep in mind, again, if you come in a little closer, I want you to see the difference between the coated wood. This was done about a year ago. You can see that this here is all coated in white all the way up until this point, but at this point up, it was all covered in leaves and it was hard for me to get into it. So I used like a foliar spray, which offered a lighter protection. But if you come in a little closer, I just want you to see the change in the color between the coated surface that's offering like the sunburn protection and that's not. The product can be applied as often as 3 times a year, but this was last coated about 12 months ago. So you can see how this has faded with the color white a year ago, and we're gonna reapply a new coat today with white, brown, and green. And let's start off with the color green. And here we go. I'm now just going to coat the other stems with the brown and the white, and then we'll come back and revisit this tree once I complete it, and then we'll go off to our grafting station. So the reason for coating your plants organically and the concept of painting your plants goes back hundreds if not thousands of years. And again, the reason is to provide a barrier, one against sunburn, another sun scald as we discussed, insects and so forth. But the reason for doing things organically is paint products, for one, most of the labels will read that they're carcinogenic. 2, a lot of them have algicides and fungicides. And algicides, for one, is a plant, and if it's killing algae so it can preserve the wood, then you're also potentially damaging your plants. So that's the second reason. The third one is paint products are designed to last for decades. When you paint your house, you do it once and you're done, and that paint will last on your house indefinitely. Again, because the product is built to last for many decades, if not beyond. The goal with doing things organically, as you can see around the base of the plant, I got some white Ivory Organics, some brown Ivory Organics, and some green Ivory Organics in the soil. But the good part is it's going to decompose, it's going to enter the earth. The soil biology, the nematodes, the beneficial bacteria, and the earthworms are going to be able to consume this stuff. It's all organic and thereby edible for the soil biology to consume it and bring it back down into the earth safely, much better than a chemical-based latex paint. Let's continue. So if we come in a little closer, I just want to show you again the Graft Union, which is right here. And the reason it's so far off the ground is again because of the Approach Graft. It was this tree and there was another potted plant that was right underneath that were grafted together. This here is the top of the rootstock, and then below would be the cutting, unless the camera went underneath, that was cut off of the scion wood. And so these two form the rootstock. But this here, I just want to point out where it's been pruned, is exposed wood. And if an insect were to bore through this wood, it would work its way into the center of the plant and work its way down. So it's really important when it comes to the graft to make sure that you thoroughly coat that with the Ivory Organics plant guard. And that'll make sure that that surface is coated while the bark continues to expand and heal over. And we're just going to keep on working our way up to the lower branches, like so. One other thing, if you want to come around, I just found another branch that I pruned over here, and the reason we pruned it was because it was growing towards the center, and you can see that the shape of this tree is a vase, but this here has been pruned right there. So again, another exposed surface that we're going to go with our brush and just coat it like so. So we're going to continue our way up the tree, and again, the goal is to get up to the lowest branches, and these branches will create the leaves that will then shade the lower part of the structure. But a lot of this lower part of the trunk is potentially exposed to too much light and risks getting sunburnt. And now with all of those surfaces coated, it's now protected as well. Let me get a little bit more over here. But this is the first time in a long time that, aside from showing a 3-in-1 grafted apple, you can now quickly see the 3 different color choices as well. So we've got the white clearly in the front, we've got the brown to my left, and closer to me, the color green. So these are the 3 color choices. And now let's get to our grafting station. I'm going to teach you a couple of grafting techniques. Follow me. So here we are with a set of 4 different apples. Some of them have been grafted with the same varieties, but there's different rootstocks that are going on here as well. And what the rootstock does, as we mentioned over there while we're painting the trees, is that rootstock offers, disease resistance. It offers rot resistance. It offers also size control. When you go to purchase an apple tree or any other fruit tree from your nursery, take a look at the label and try to find out, is it a dwarf, a semi-dwarf, or a standard tree, and make sure that that size is going to fit within that area of your garden. Over here I've got another apple tree which I grafted using the Approach Grafting technique, and before I do it again, I can show you that the desired wood, which is called the scion wood, is this over here. And you can see that I pruned it off of when it was once connected to its own rootstock in another container. So this here is the scion wood, which was grafted onto the rootstock, which is below at this point. And you can see that the graft is the desired flavors on this side, and the rootstock, which is controlling the height, disease resistance, everything else, is on this side and was pruned at this point over here. So this here is another graft union, but if you go below, you'll notice that there's another stem that's coming out over here. And this here is coming off of the rootstock. You can see that it's below the graft union, and anything that's below the rootstock is considered a sucker, and this is not going to give you a desired flavor of apple. This rootstock was selected again for disease resistance, root rot resistance, for height control, and a variety of other benefits that rootstocks offer, but it's not grafted for the flavor of the apple. So we're not going to get a desired flavor of apple from the rootstock. So any branches that are coming that are suckers or below the graft need to be removed. And so we're going to do so real quickly, like so. So we're going to come here with our pruners. When we prune, here's another helpful tip. And I got this email about a week ago. Someone said, am I supposed to prune it 1/3 or 1/4 away from the tree? And let's do that real quick. So this person recommended leaving a nub like this, and the answer is no. The goal when pruning your branch is to prune it as flush as you can to the trunk of the tree, so as the tree continues to expand and grow. Let me cut that up a little bit more. The bad part is these pruners are not as sharp as they should be, but you can see that we've got a nice flush growth over here. And then we're just going to go with our Ivory Organics and coat that. But as the plant continues to expand, it's going to heal over this wound. We can take another example. If you look up above over here, we can see that this wasn't pruned as close as it could have, and the plant is working its way around it. But it's doing a much better job at this point over here. But all of this is going to be coated with the Ivory Organics at the end of this video. So here's one grafting example using the Approach Graft. And let me show you a Cleft Graft over here that we did. If you take a look at this potted apple tree, you'll take a look at the base over here, and take a look over here. This is the rootstock, and it looks horrible. This whole side of the rootstock is beginning to rot. This is all exposed wood. There's no bark around this plant, but it was grafted on this side. Let me move the can. But it was grafted on this side, and you can see that this here is the grafted wood, and then below it is the rootstock. And what we're going to do, and you can see when we split it, we actually, and we're gonna, I'll show you what I'm talking about when we do the cleft graft. We're gonna split into the base of the tree, and you can see that it has since grown over. But in the next 2, 3, possibly 4 years, this entire tree will grow over all of this dead wood. But in the meantime, we've got to make sure that it doesn't rot and doesn't get infected with any pests. So what we're gonna do is just take our Ivory Organics paint. You can use colors white, brown, or green, and we're just gonna seal it like so. And that's gonna offer the tree far more protection and prevent the risk of any disease within the plant as it continues to heal and grow, as this is doing quite well. And here we go. And we can go all around now the Graft Union. And that'll be good enough for now, as we're gonna do a grafting project on this particular tree in just a minute. The next thing I want to share with you is this, and I shared with you at that apple tree that one of the apple varieties is the Granny Smith apple. And while I've got you, let me tell you a little bit of facts about the Granny Smith apple tree. And it says over here that it's a large, very late season, all-purpose green apple, crisp, tart, sweet, and flavorful when allowed to fully ripen. Requires a long, hot summer. Tree ripe fruit has a pale greenish yellow shoulder where exposed to the sun. Good keeper and good for cooking. Prolonged bloom. Good pollinizer for other apples such as the Red Delicious, and a relatively small tree. The other thing too I know about it is that it requires, I want to see like the hours over here. If you take a look over here, it says it requires as much as 500 hours of chill hours, and that is, a chill hour is defined as temperatures that are between 45 and 60 degrees. So it's going to need 500 of those hours over the course of winter in order for it to properly bloom and support fruit. The other thing I took off of the tag with the Granny Smith is this pink tag, which I want to share with you as well. And this is what's important about it. It says that it's an M111, so 111 rootstock, and that's the name of the rootstock of the apple that it was grafted on. So the rootstock is called M11, and it's an excellent all-around rootstock for apples. Tolerates wet, dry, or I'm trying to see woolly apple aphids and collar rot. Induces bearing at a young age. Average height is 80 to 90% of a standard, and about 15 to 25 feet tall. The reason I'm reading this to you is when I had that apple tree, it created a sucker off the base of that grafted tree, and this here is a piece of that rootstock that came off of the Granny Smith apple tree. So I've got the M11 rootstock right here, and I'm going to use that M11 rootstock to now create my next grafted variety apple tree. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to do the approach graft, which is my favorite method. And as I said earlier, I achieve very close to 100% success, as the two trees are allowed to graft and heal and grow together, both on their own roots, until the healing is accomplished, and then I separate the one tree from the other. So to begin, what we're going to do is I'm going to put this pot on top of the other pot, and my goal is to select 2 branches that are going to be allowed to grow with one another. And I've selected that these 2 would be ideal branches to grow onto one another. So we're going to do it like so. I'm going to get this branch out of the way here. There's a vine that actually tied these all up, but let me clean that up real quick. And I'm going to get one of these branches out of the way so it doesn't interfere. And what we're going to do is we're going to end up grafting these 2 branches together using the approach graft. And notice that they're both on their own rootstock. Once they heal, we'll take off the potted plant. The top of the desired apple flavor, which is on this side, is a of the apple variety I told you about. It was one that's been in our family since I was about 10 years of age. It's that greenish red apple that's sweet and crisp, and one day I'll identify it. But again, it could be a seedling variety of apple that our family's just kept and have enjoyed. So anyways, we're gonna graft these 2 together. To begin, we're gonna start off with, these are the tools that I brought. I like actually using my fishing twine. I've got here a few razor blades as well. And then I've got some rubbing alcohol. And what we're going to do first is make sure we've got a clean blade. When it comes to grafting, it's very important to keep things as clean as possible. So we're just going to take one of our blades and make sure that it's cleaned off. And what we're going to do now is we're going to line up where we're going to accomplish the graft between these two trees. So we're going to basically line them up. The things that I'm looking for is I'm trying to see where the nodes are, because it's harder to cut through a node. If I can find a nice clean area between the two branches, that'll be the easiest and fastest way to graft those two units together. And as you can see here, there's some vine material that's on there, so I'm going to cut that off real quick. Let's get that tendril off the plant. And there it goes. That's too close to the graft area, that's why I'm getting it out. So the first thing we're going to do is, this here is the rootstock. So I'm going to cut down into it, like so. And I'm going to cut down into it until I get about halfway into the wood, and about a ½ inch to 1 inch long. And that should do it. And now the goal with this technique is, I'm going to pull this back carefully, is you can see the bark is obviously on the outside. The green tissue that's underlying the bark is called the cambium tissues, and that's the living tissue. It's about a cell to 3 cells thick, and that carries all the sugars and waters up and down the plant. And then the underlying white part is the supporting wood structure. So we cut down into the rootstock, and now we're going to cut up into the scion wood the same way. So here we go. Now we're going to go up and and we're going to get as close as we can to the same length, and we're going to work our way towards the center of the stem. And that should do it. And now we'll position these on top of one another, and you can see we're going to try to fit them in as carefully as possible. And if the thicknesses are not the same, the goal is to simply make sure that one side of the cambium tissues is touching the other, and you can see how beautifully that fits. And they're going to heal and grow and expand into one another over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Then we're going to revisit it and prune again the rootstock off the root on one side, and then remove the stem off the other side, and the flow will go from the rootstock into the new scion wood. So let me get my tie ready. It's right here. And the reason I like using fishing string or nylon string is because I like visiting my grafter after about 3 weeks, which is when the Graft Union begins happening, and just to watch how it's healing, and I can see right through my tie. And so here we go. Now we're just going to wrap it. I usually wrap it around 3 times and then tighten it like so. And then wrap, 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 and then tighten. This process that I'm doing on my apples, and last week I did a publication on my figs, which is our 5-in-1 fig tree, can be done as well for your stone fruit trees. And just to let you know, your stone fruit trees that are all in the same category would include cherries and almonds, nectarines, peaches, plums, apricots. All of those trees can be grafted with one another. There's more as well. And then when it comes to citrus, you can graft your oranges and lemons and limes and grapefruit. All of those citrus varieties with one another as well, doing these same concepts. So if you have any interesting projects to do, I'm hoping this helps inspire you in your own gardens as well. And we then close it. So once we've got those tied up, we're going to simply cut the excess string off. And what the next thing most growers will do is they'll then wrap it up with tar. They may wrap it up with parafilm tape. But the key to successful grafting, and I've been doing this again since I was 15 years old, is to keep the union moist. And if that's the case, and what I've been doing successfully again, is just taking some paper towel, got some water over here. I'm just gonna moisten my paper towel like so. and wrap the union. And if moisture is what matters, let's keep it wet. And this will keep the union hydrated while those tissues heal and fuse and become one. We'll then take a little bit of Reynolds wrap. And again, you can use a plastic bag, Reynolds wrap, parafilm. The goal is to keep the moisture at this location, and you don't have to do it extra tight. I'm just gonna simply wrap it. And again, I'm gonna go with my string and just hold that in place. It's not gonna be a completely airtight union. Like I said, I'm gonna be revisiting this again in 3 weeks, possibly 6 weeks, and no later than 8 weeks, as this will be grafted within an 8-week period of time. And then we're gonna have to take off all of this twine, otherwise it'll be strangled and the string will start working its way into the wood. So here we are, just securing that in place like so. And now we're done. So now this rootstock, which is the M11, which is gonna grow to a standard, or 90% of a standard sized tree, approximately 15 to 25 feet, will be supporting that desired green and apple, tart and sweet flavored apple, which one day I'll give a name to. I'm meeting with a few fruit growers in the next few weeks and hoping they can help me decipher the flavor of this particular apple when I meet with them. The next thing we're gonna do, so this here is called the Approach Graft. The last thing I wanna share with you is a process called the Cleft Graft. And now we're gonna visit this apple tree over here. And what I've got here in this container, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of apple suckers coming out. And this is how this apple tree originated. And this was another tree that was growing on our family property during my elementary school years. And again, I've been propagating it and keeping it as a rootstock, as this here creates a dwarf apple tree. An apple tree that averages in height between 8 to a maximum of 12 feet in height. So it's ideal for a container or just having a small tree around your property. But you can see when it comes to rootstocks, I've got quite a few here, and they're very easy to propagate, and it seems like as many as I take out, it keeps on making more. And it propagates as easily as this. If you come in a little closer, you can see here at the base, almost each of these apples have their own little roots right there. I'm actually gonna pull this guy out right here. You can see right there. Hopefully you can zoom in and see how many roots are right there. And here's another rootstock, and it kind of spreads just like, I don't know, sugar cane, for example, the way it has runners that run under the ground and creates another apple or another sugar cane. But I'm just gonna pull on it. I want you to see how easily it creates another apple tree. When I pull here, so I'm just gonna take one of these apples and just pull it off. And you can see here I've now got another baby apple tree. And here it is. And I can now plant this and I'll have another dwarf apple rootstock. And I'm just using it again for the rootstock because again it's providing that resistance against disease, root rot, and all these other defenses. But most importantly, the value I have behind this is it's giving me a small plant and easy to manage in a container. The other thing I'm gonna have to do soon is I pull this out of a location behind my wall. You can see that the root is becoming coiled, and it's a good idea to repot your plants every 3 to 5 years to prevent this from happening. And ultimately, if you never repot your plants, it can end up strangling itself. The roots will wrap upon one another to the point that it ends up killing the tree. And if you were to plant this in the ground, you're gonna wanna make sure that all those roots are open and spread. And again, when it comes to pruning the roots, if you do cut any of the roots when repotting it or replanting it into your garden, it's okay to prune some of those roots as long as you proportionally remove some of the branches from above, removing the load from above to compensate for the stress that you've caused below the ground. With the pruning of the root structure. So what we're going to do next is do a method called the Cleft Graft, and I'm going to use this stem over here, which is my largest stem, to do the Cleft Graft. And to begin, what I'm going to do, and you'll notice with many nurseries, the graft is usually just an inch or two off the ground. So to mimic what you'll find in the nursery, I'm going to go about an inch or two off the ground. I want to leave myself with enough room against these suckers, which I'll separate another day. I'm actually going to go a little higher because it's going to be hard to work with all these stems around here. So I'm just going to cut it right here. This here again is so this branch that I just removed is rootstock. This is not going to produce a flavorful apple. Again, it's only providing, I'm repeating it again, disease resistance, rot resistance, and height control. So we don't need this wood. We're using now the rootstock to put a desired flavor of apple on it. And we will now put, for example, a Granny Smith apple. So let's go to the Granny Smith apple tree and select some scion wood to graft on top at this location. Follow me. Here we are again. So again, this here was the red apple variety with the green stalk. The white stalk is that reddish green family variety that we've been growing within our family since I was about 10 years of age. And then this here is the Granny Smith variety. What I want to point out real quick while I've got you here again is you'll notice that they're all staked. Had I not staked them, these three branches would have been growing vertically and too close to one another to create three separate entities. I want them to all have three separate zones where they're capturing sunlight and maximizing the amount of sun on their leaves to support the maximum amount of fruit. So that's the reason I pulled the branches apart so they're all growing in different zones. And additionally, we reused our chopsticks from our Chinese restaurant. You may see in between these triangles that I created, and here's a second triangle and a third triangle over here to basically pull my three selected branches to also grow in its own zone. Otherwise, again, each of these branches would be competing for sunlight, and again, it'll be taking away from the maximum amount of fruit yields that we can enjoy off of these trees. So this here is my Granny Smith grafted rootstock. From this point up is Granny Smith. From this point, the grafted union down is the rootstock. So as long as I cut any wood off of this, I'll have genetically identical Granny Smith apple trees. So what I'm going to do is just take a piece of scion wood, which is the desired flavor of Granny Smith, and if you come in a little closer, you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm coming up to the next node, and you can see over here this is going to be the flower bud or leaf bud, and I'm cutting about a 1/4 inch above it and at an angle like so. And this here is now going to be my Granny Smith grafted apple wood. So let's go back to our grafting station and add this on as our cleft graft. Follow me. So here we are now. I've got my Granny Smith cutting right here, and what we're going to do is now prepare it to insert it into what's going to be called the cleft graft. So to begin, what we're going to do is, again, we're going to take our cloth here, we're going to make sure we sterilize our blade, so we're going to go with our rubbing alcohol and clean the blade. Just to let you know that today's date is March 3rd. As you can see from all of the apple trees, maybe come in a little closer, you can see that the buds have still not bloomed. And this is now March 3rd. This is one apple variety, the rootstock. You can take a look at these buds as well. They have not opened yet, but they are beginning to swell, and we are getting close to the growing season, which will probably be April or May is when they'll start breaking bud and going into flower. What we're going to do first is we're going to split the rootstock in half, and you can see that we're also going to be dealing with the challenge that the scion wood, which is the Granny Smith apple variety that's going to be providing the Granny Smith apples, is a lot smaller than the rootstock, but that's not going to be a problem. I'm going to show you why in just a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to split, working our way down the rootstock with our blade, and the goal again is to go down about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. And here we go. And whatever depth we go down it, we're going to want to do the same with the scion wood. So here we are with the scion wood. We got all of these nice buds, but I'm noticing, for example, and I want you to pay attention to what I'm looking at. Here's one bud, here's another bud, here's another bud, here's another bud. But for whatever reason, these last couple of nodes don't really have swollen buds, and even though they could turn into growth, I'm probably going to end up pruning it to the next best bud, which is right there. What I'm going to do now is first prepare the scion wood by creating a V to fit into that split that we did into the rootstock. So here we go. So we did it on this side, and then we're going to do the same on the opposite side. So here we go. And you can see that I'm cutting it on a paper towel. Sometimes I use a dish as well, but the goal is you're not going to want to do it on a dirty surface. Let's keep on going. And again, the goal is I'm trying to create a V. So you can see that there's bark on this side, the cambium tissues in between, which is again 1 to 3 cells thick, and then the supporting wood underneath. I kind of want to taper this a little bit further. I'm looking at both sides. So here we go. I want it to squeeze in as close as I can to the end of that rootstock. So here's that. And still want to get it thinner. So let's keep on going. There we go. That's a lot better. And then what we're going to do is I like tapering it with the exposed surface, which is going to be the outside, a little bit longer than what's going to be on the inside. And I've determined to keep this on the inside of the graft. So we're going to taper it like so. And again, the outside is going to be a little bit longer, the inside a little bit shorter. The goal is the cambium tissues on the outside is going to line up with the cambium tissues in the rootstock. This here is going to come in contact with nothing. So we're not using this whole backside, and it won't heal into anything, but we're relying on the cambium tissues on the outside of the bark, which will now fit. And now I'm going to also prepare the wood as well. I want to just keep these 3 buds, which is 1, 2, and 3. These that don't have well-established buds, I'm going to prune off right now. So I'm going to use my pruners here. And I'm just going to prune it like so, about a 1/4 inch. So about a 1/4 inch above the bud. And there it is. And now we've got a nice healthy bud right near the top, and hopefully all the energy from the rootstock is going to push and swell that bud and cause it to grow into our next branch. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take also our screwdriver here. I'm going to make sure I've also sterilized that as well with our cloth. And we're just going to open the rootstock that we just split. And you can see that I've got it leaning on one side as we're going to graft this side of the rootstock with this scion wood. And we're going to fit that in here like so. And I'm just prying the rootstock back, and the scion wood is just running down like so. And you can see that all that matters is the scion wood cambium tissues come in touch with the rootstock cambium tissues, and you can see how that's going to fit and heal and grow into one another. But the backside is not in contact with anything at all. But we're going to tie these as tight as we can together and watch them heal. So now we're just going to take our twine. Again, I'm using my fishing string, and it's just my preference, but you could really use any other string as well. And we're just going to tie it like so. And again, the reason I use the fishing string is because I like to open up the graft and I can see right through the string and watch it heal. Here we go. So about every 3 wraps, I'm tightening it as tight as I can go. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, squeeze, 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 and now we'll tighten it in place. And now check this out again. And because we use fishing string, you can kind of see exactly what's happening. You can see that a lot of the cambium tissue has come in contact. If I use my pliers, you can see that we've got better contact on this side than we do on the upper part of this side, but we do have contact near the base over here and along this side. And that's the reason to actually get a good 1/2 inch to an inch of coverage. And again, on the back side, you can see with now having tightened it as tight as we can, the backside has come back into contact, and this will ultimately heal and close itself and hopefully remain as living, healthy tissue, unlike what we saw with this apple tree over here, where the stump began to rot because it didn't have much living tissue to support on this side. So the next step, as we did with the Approach Graft, and again the success when doing your Cleft Graft, is to make sure that the union as well as the scion wood remain moist. Again, 90+% of gardeners will cover it with waxes and tar and with parafilm. And what I've been doing successfully, again, since junior high, is just using a wet paper towel. And I'm hoping this technique works well for you too. But again, if moisture is the key, then let's keep it moist. And I've been grafting plants successfully using this technique. And come and watch this, how we're gonna wrap it up now. So again, the goal is the entire graft union is gonna be wrapped up in the moist paper towel, like so. And we're just gonna wrap it and then go up the scion wood as well, like so. And now that whole union is gonna remain moist. And then we're just gonna go with our again, any plastic. I'm using Reynolds wrap, but you can also use a plastic bag or also parafilm as well. And the goal is, and you can see I'm not doing a perfectly airtight seal, but I am wrapping up the majority of the structure. When I reopen this in, again, the next 3, 4, possibly 5, 6 weeks, and figure within 8 weeks, this should be a perfectly healed, grafted union, and all of this string that we've put on the plant needs to come off so it's not constricting its growth and allowing it to continue to expand and grow. So here we are now tightening this in place, and we'll just lightly wrap all the way down to the base of the tree. What we're gonna do when we open this up, and this is the importance of now subscribing to this video, so be sure to subscribe below, is we're gonna revisit this in about the next 6 to 8 weeks, and once we see growth, we're going to separate this rootstock grafted onto the Granny Smith apple tree from all of these other root suckers, and I'm gonna repot this plant. We're gonna do a wonderful demonstration of how to repot your apple tree and get it off to another great start in its new container. And here we go. Let's tie that up like so. And we're done. We can take this tag. As you've noticed, I've lost a lot of these labels on these other grafts. I keep on doing all these things that I desire and then I forget what the names are. But we'll leave the Granny Smith tag on there so we know what we've done. So if you found this video informative, be sure to like it. And most importantly, by subscribing below, you're going to be connected to all these other educational gardening videos by Ivory Organics. Thanks again for watching, and happy gardening.